So the fact that I don't cut my plants, it kind of don't go through that cycle. It just keeps on growing and growing and growing. Um, yeah. So I don't like to just pollinate plants just for the sake of pollination. I really am intentional with what it is that I want to get out of a specific hybrid. Goeiemorgen, goeiemiddag, goeienaand. Whether it is morning, afternoon, or evening where you are, it's always a good time to watch some plant YouTube. My name is Shanae, and in today's video, we are going to be looking at 10 Anthurium. We are going to do a little bit of a throwback, so then versus now, and I'm going to be showing you the results of me using those tips that I mentioned on Wednesday. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into today's video. The first one that I want us to look at is the Zara cross red vein dog phoenix. And this plant I got back in November 2024. So I kind of had it just for a year and a month or so. And this plant I knew was going to have such a beautiful emergent. The Zara has a really purple emergent, and then the red vein dog phoenix has a very dark maroon kind of emergent. And I thought the hardened off leaf is probably going to be a little bit more elongated, but probably a little bit more broader or more rounder in the middle. And I also thought that it was going to be quite a dark leaf, because those two colors, the purple and the maroon, generally they do harden off to be quite a darker color. So let me show you what the plant looks like right now. Alright, so this is what the plant looks like today. So quite a nice size up compared to the seedling that I initially got. And look at that emergent. I think it's exactly what I expected. Like I said, the purple color from the Zara and the maroon from the red winged dog phoenix kind of gives this beautiful, intense maroon, almost very dark kind of emergent. And then of course it gets the pink or red veins from the red vein dog phoenix. So really happy with this emergent, and as expected does have a very dark hardened off leaf. And you can probably also see that it does have the pink red veins from the red vein dog phoenix. So this one, like I said in Wednesday's video, when the plant comes into the house, I do make sure that I give it good humidity. So from that 4-leaf seedling that I just showed you, the acclimation period of this one was so quick, and that is 100% because of the high humidity that I gave it, especially in the beginning. It also stayed in the grow tent, so I continued getting the 75-85% humidity on average. This one is potted up in semi-hydro. This one is 100% in leca, and as you can see, the roots are loving it. This is honestly such a nice substrate for this plant. And as you can see, this plant is a prolific flowerer. This one already have 2 inflows on it. This is not the first inflows. I think this is probably like the 4th or 5th inflow on this plant. So it is doing really well. This one I did decide to pollinate because it was really screaming. There was quite a lot of stigmatic fluid on it, and I thought, why not give it a go? So this one I did pollinate with the red spider. So what I'm expecting from this hybrid is hopefully some of the seedlings will have the few sinus that the red spider has. But this red spider has a beautiful emergent, but it doesn't have the red sinus that I'm expecting from the red spider. So I'm hoping with this red veins that is in here that comes through on that plant as well. This inflow is generally quite red, but I do see that it is changing to a kind of green color. So that is a really good indication that it has taken, but I don't see any bumps where the berries are forming yet. I'm not getting too excited about it. So it has been about 3 weeks since I have pollinated it. So it's a little bit too early to tell in terms of time, but yeah, we'll see in a couple of weeks whether it is going to be successful or not. This inflow I also have plans with. I'm going to take the pollen of this one and put it on a different plant. So if you want to have a look at what the plant is for this one, last Sunday's video where I discussed my 2026 hybrids that I'm excited to make, it is featured in there, so you can have a look at that one after this video. But yeah, this is the beautiful Zara cross Red Vein Dark Phoenix that has grown quite nicely. Next plant that I want to show you is the Anthurium Raven Soul. So that is the Crystallinum crossed with Luxurians. So this plant I did get back in, I think, September 2024. So this one lost all of its leaves on import. So I actually had no idea what this plant actually was. I only had a trunk and it had a couple of roots when it came in, and the roots immediately started to shot out, and I also put it in high humidity, of course, so that I can promote that healthy growing and setting it up for success. So about 2 months later, it did start to push out its first leaf, and this is what it looked like. So this gave me a good indication that this is actually the Raven Soul, which is the Crystallinum crossed with the Luxurians, and I was so happy. This bullet type of texture just had me looking at it every single day. But this plant has been growing quite well. So this plant I actually put in leca, and it's been in leca ever since. So let me quickly show you what the plant looks like today. And this is her. Just over a year later. I think that is also quite a decent size up for sure. So this plant, like I said, have been living in leca pretty much all of its life, and it has done wonders for this plant. And I actually like it for the fact that the leca retains quite a lot of the water. So when I water it and I keep a little bit of a reservoir, the water gets kind of wet up by the leca, and it retains it and provides it to the roots as it is necessary. But also the leca provides some good spaces in between, so the plant also has access to oxygen, which is quite good for the plant. This plant, I think, kind of lost a little bit of its bullet type of texture, so it kind of is more in the middle, I would say, of the velvety and the luxuriant bullet type of texture, which I actually really like. So yeah, this one holds on to quite a few leaves at a time, and you can see that this one is growing the grow tent. It is growing in all type of directions, so the leaf kind of just figures out where the best light is, and that's the direction that it kind of grows into. So this one does need a little bit more space, but it kind of weaves itself into the different spaces that it can get between the different plants. So not really a problem. This old leaf, which is the oldest at the moment, is looking like it's kind of going, but I think these two did come during the winter move, and this damage that you can see is probably because of that, and because it is quite old. So the new leaves are looking quite nice. This one is a constant grower. Even now, you probably would be able to see that there is a new leaf on the way. And roots are growing insane as well. And that is literally because of the high humidity in the grow tent. This one is also a prolific flowerer. So with every leaf, a new inflow also comes in. This probably is on inflow also number 5, number 6 or so. So I finally decided to pollinate this one, and I really like a Lux hybrid being crossed by another velvety plant. I think that is, I'm quite interested actually to see what the texture is on those ones. So I think I did pollinate that one with the Magnificum crossed with Papililaminum. That is coming up a little bit later, so you'll be able to see what that plant looks like. But it doesn't look like there is any indication that it has been successful yet. This one, I think it's also been about 3 or 4 weeks now. So it's a good indication that the inflow is still quite green, but I can't see any bumps on it. So it's a waiting game on that one. This one I've actually been ignoring, but I see that it does have stigmatic fluid on it. I probably won't pollinate this one. Maybe I'll just get the pollen off of it and see if in the future there is another plant that I want to pollinate it with, then I'll do that. So yeah, this is quite nice. I actually do like a Luxurians cross that has a much lighter vein that runs through it. It's actually quite cool. I think a lot of the Luxurians hybrids actually loses that if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this one seems to retain that beautiful bright green type of color. But in any case, I think this is also quite a success. So yeah, Anthurium Crystallinum crossed with Luxurians. The next one that we are going to be looking at is the Anthurium Luxury Jungle Inverse, and that is the Nigrolaminum Gigi crossed with Luxurians. And this is what the plant looked like in December 2024. So I must be honest, when I got this plant into the plant loving house initially, I wasn't too impressed. I think I really liked the Luxurians hybrids at the time, and this one didn't have as much of the bullet type of texture that I like in a Anthurium Luxurians hybrid. So this one was kinda on the back burner, and I think the emergent is also quite a chocolatey color, maybe a light brown kind of color. So it wasn't quite something that would really excite me, to be quite honest. But as this plant grew, it grew, and it really grew on me as well. So let me show you what the plant looked like right now. Yeah. Okay, so this is what the plant looks like today, and what a beautiful upsize. This is insane. Like, this plant is so big. This is the second last leaf, and I think this one got a little bit too close to the light and it kind of discolored it a little bit. But this is the newest leaf that only came out about a month ago. So I'll show you a picture of what this plant looked like exactly a month ago. Such a beautiful emergent, but quite small, and it hardened off quite nicely. But this one is a prolific grower. Even now, there is a new leaf on the way. How cool! And this one is one of those plants that holds onto pretty much all of its leaves, and all of them look quite good. But yeah, like I said, didn't like this plant in the beginning, but when it constantly started to grow like this, I was like, this one has my heart. But what I really like about this plant is this really maroon kind of petioles that it has, and then it also has some maroon veins going through. You probably would be able to see it on the back of the leaf a little bit more. The front, it doesn't come through as much, it kind of looks very dark, but yeah, quite nice. This one have flowered. It took quite a while. The plant did have quite huge leaves before the first flower came in. And I thought, seeing that the plant is doing so well, and by the leaves, it kind of looks like it is mature, I thought, let me give it a go. Let me pollinate that very first inflow. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, who knows? Like I said, I really like a luxuriant hybrid that is crossed with a really velvet plant. I'm really interested to see what that texture then looks like. So I did cross this one with the crystal whole cross crystal, and that one is quite velvety. It has a lot of crystal leaves, so it would be interesting to see if this one retains some of this really shiny, smooth type of texture, and whether it keeps this really bunny lobias. It is so cool. This flower, I think, has been on here for 2 months, and it does look like it's really changing color to a nice bright green, and it does look like there is some swelling on there, so I think that this might be successful. But it is a Luxurians hybrid, so I think it might take some time. Maybe, or hopefully not as long as the Clarinomium hybrids, but yeah, this is going to be a nice learning experience, so we'll see what happens. but there is another flower. Of course, I won't pollinate that one at all. So maybe I'll just take the pollen and see in the future if there is another plant that I want to pollinate that one with. Quite a massive size up, if I were to say so myself. In any case, this is the Anthurium Luxury Jungle, and that is the Nigrolaminum cross with the Anthurium Luxurians. Next up is the Anthurium Regale. So this is the plant when I got it in October last year. So I've had it for about a year and 2 months at this point in time. And to be quite honest, I did have a Regale before this one. And I bought it as quite a big plant. But yeah, Regale are generally quite slow to grow, so I probably gotta leave maybe every 4 to 5 months or so. So 3 leaves a year is, yeah, it's not ideal. It is not satisfying. So when this plant came up for sale, I was like, let me try it. Let me try it as a seedling and see if it grows faster or if I'm gonna get a bit more enjoyment from it. And I definitely did. Let me show you what the plant looks like right now. And this is what the plant looks like right now. So this is the newest leaf. I literally just hardened off not too long ago. Look at the upsize from that small little seedling to now this almost medium-sized plant, I would say. And yeah, I really like it. So I would say this one definitely lived up to that expectation of getting a small plant as a seedling and growing it to a bigger size. And so I would say this plant has been growing quite nicely. I did upsize with every single leaf, like you can see on these two. I think this one is quite a dramatic upsize. The other ones probably weren't as dramatic, but it was still quite a significant upsize. So this one I've always had in pun and it's been loving that type of substrate. But again, I don't think necessarily it's about the substrate. I think it's more about how do I make sure that I keep my plant hydrated, make sure that I frequently water. So this one is in a self-watering pot. This one doesn't have a wick system, but it does have a reservoir. So I make sure that that reservoir is pretty much always full so that the plant can wick up the water as needed. This is quite chunky pun that I used for this one because the roots are quite thick on the regale. I mean, when anthuriums size up and when they get a little bit much more mature, the roots generally is quite substantive and it does keep a lot of water in them. But yeah, I think the self-watering part really made a difference with this one. So this one, thank goodness, wasn't as slow as I come to expect from the Regale based on the previous one or the other one that I have. So yeah, I am very happy with this Anthurium Regale. Next up is my very first Anthurium Besseae app, and here is not a picture of when I got it, but this was probably about 2 months after I got it. This one also lost all of its leaves when it came into my house after being imported from Ecuador. So this is one that really benefited from high humidity when it came into the house. So this one I did immediately put in my grow tent where it probably had about 75 to 80% humidity, and it really helped the plant to set it up for success. So like I also said on Wednesday, plants go through a lot of stress during the transit period, especially when they go from one country to another, but you can also experience it when it goes from one house to another. So like I said, high humidity was the key for this one to not only survive that transit period, but also to set it up for future success. So this is also one that I probably had for about a year and about 2 months or 3 months or so. Here is what the plant looks like right now. So it is quite significant compared to the small little plant that I just showed you on the screen of when I initially got it. So this is so pretty. I really like the dark foliage on this one, and it does have some really round leaf shape, especially on top, and then at the bottom it kind of narrows off a little bit, but those veins are so electric, and it just has such a beautiful pattern to it. I really like it, and I like the fact that my BCAF is giving me some good looking leaves. Even this one is looking quite good. So, really happy to see that this one has grown so nicely. It has also flowered quite prolifically, and I finally decided to pollinate this one. And I didn't do it on the first couple of ones because I honestly didn't know what I wanted to pollinate this plant with. So, I don't like to just pollinate plants just for the sake of pollination. I really am intentional with what it is that I want to get out of a specific hybrid. So this one took a little bit of time, but I finally decided to pollinate this one with the Magnificum cross Papililaminum. So I'll put a quick picture up here to see what it looks like. So I think it will probably have the more elongated leaf shape. Both of them are quite veiny. It has some nice crystal veins, and that one has a beautiful emergent. This one I think comes out a little bit brownish kind of color, but that one has a beautiful maroon kind of color. So I think, or I'm hoping that the hybrid is going to have an emergent that is literally close to that one, or somewhere in between, but definitely not the brown that's on this one. But yeah, I think that is quite a nice size up. So humidity was definitely the key for this one to be set up for success and eventually grow such big leaves. And looking at these two leaves, you can see the size up is quite significant. So I think this one probably has some time to still get much bigger. That is going to be really exciting. But yeah, Anthurium Besseae. Next up is the Magnificum cross with Papililaminum. So like I already mentioned earlier in the video, I did cross quite a few of my plants, maybe 2 or 3, with the pollen of this one, like the one that we just saw before, and I think the Ravensaw Crystallux as well. I did pollinate with this plant. So now you finally get to see what it looks like. So I got this plant also last year sometime. So it's been in my care for about a year and 4 months or so. And this is what it looked like when it came into the plant having house. So I absolutely loved a Magnificum. You probably have seen on this channel my blue Magnificum, and maybe I'll show it a little bit later on as well because that is the biggest plant that I have in my collection. So I really like a Magnificum. At this point in time, I only had one Papililaminum, but that pap gave me such a lot of uphill battle. And even now, I am struggling with that pep in particular. I did get another one, and that one is giving me absolutely no issues. I really like that plant. But this one, I thought, let me get it because I really want a pep that looks good, and I'm good with mag. So I think the hybrid is going to be quite cool. But little did I know that this plant was going to be one of my absolute favorite plants in my collection. So let me show you what it looks like today. And this is the Anthurium Magnificum crossed with Papililaminum. How absolutely pretty is this plant? Look at the color of the back of the leaf. It is so pretty, and this has a very beautiful emergent. Very much what I wanted from a Papililaminum, which has a beautiful, really maroon, deep maroon, I would even say, color to the emergent. This one is exactly like that. It's interesting that when the emergent comes out, it actually feels more like a smooth kind of plant as opposed to the velvet that eventually it does harden off to. So it's a really interesting one to have a look at the emergent all the way up until the hardened off leaf, and look at how beautiful the hardened off leaf looks like. These ones are super super dark. It does have a sheen to it, which I think I get from the probably from the mag. I think the pad also has the sheen, but maybe the mag a little bit more. But definitely the dark color comes from the Papililaminum. But I love this plant. This one also kept on upsizing with every single leaf. This one is an interesting one. So remember on Wednesday I did speak about how I make sure that my plants are pest free, and that helps them to grow as big as they possibly can grow. So this one is an example of the opposite, I would say. So if you watch my grow tent, the very first grow tent video, you would have seen this plant, and I even spoke on that video about the third leaf that was on this plant, and the third leaf was facing a leaf of another plant. I think it was the Regale Luxurians, and they were literally like face to face. And what I then found was when I eventually cut off one of the leaves because it was completely yellow, I then realized on this specific plant, surprisingly not on the other one. I don't know if spider mites don't like the bullet type of texture on the Anthurium Luxurians, and they prefer the, I guess, velvety type of texture on these ones. But this one was, I won't say covered, but there was actually a lot of spider mites on it, surprisingly. And it was interesting because I did tell you on Wednesday that I go through my entire collection pretty much every night, and I go through it with a torch. So it's easy for me to see when there are some spider mites. And I've never picked up spider mites until I cut off the other leaf that was facing the leaf that was on here, and then I saw the spider mites on this one. And I think the spider mites just started because there was some on here, but very, very little. And I, of course, immediately treated it, and the plant was doing okay. I, of course, had to go through almost the entire tent and spray that down as well, make sure that all of those spider mites were gone. But I think my point on Wednesday was make sure that you get rid of your spider mites or pests as soon as you possibly can, because it does impact the overall health and then also the growth of the plant. So if you look at these two leaves, this is the newest leaf and this is the oldest leaf. And if you look at them, they kind of look the exact same size. This one, to be quite honest, is actually a little bit smaller than this one. And I think the spider mites has quite a bit to do with that. Because the plant was working so hard on fighting the spider mites, it kind of took the energy away from developing this leaf. I mean, by no means is this leaf small, but compared to the previous leaves, I think it did take a little bit of a step back, I would say. So yeah, make sure that in terms of pest, you identify it really, really early and you treat it really early as well. So your plants can grow big and beautiful. But nevertheless, I really, really love this plant. Love the dark colors, the bright veins on it. There's probably a lot of plants that I would want to cross this one with just to get the color and the elongated or the long or the big elongated leaf on this one. But yeah, Anthurium Magnificum crossed with Papililaminum. So the next one that I'm going to speak about is the Anthurium Moronense hybrid. And this is what the plant looked like when I initially got it a couple of months ago. So probably about the same time as all of the others. Maybe a year and about 3 months ago, I got this plant. As you can see, quite a seedling at this stage. And here is what the plant looks like today. So this plant also went through what I would normally call a awkward teenage phase, where it kind of just didn't look as well as I guess what it looks like right now. So I didn't have all of these defined features like this really wide sinus and really elongated shapes that it has. It kind of just looked quite straight, I would say, pretty much as what you would expect from a Warocquanium, kind of looked similar to that. But now that it has gone out of that teenage stage, it also got some of these defined features that I can see on this plant right now. So that is a really good sign. of maturity. So this plant is in a somewhat of a self watering pot, and it is in pun. And I know that this plant is quite happy because it is producing these aerial roots, and if I can get it back in the pot and it can actually grow down into the substrate like all of these other aerial roots that you can see on top there, what that does, and I think I neglected to include this one tip in Wednesday's video, and it is to not cut your plants. So for me, I don't generally cut my plants, I just allow them to grow. I think when you cut your plant, you kind of set it back a little bit. It has to do a little bit of a restart, if you will. So the fact that I don't cut my plants, it kind of don't go through that cycle. It just keeps on growing and growing and growing. And with that growing comes aerial roots that also then continues to grow. Like you see on this one, I literally just tucked in this arrowroot that was hanging over the pot. I just tucked that in, and what that essentially does is, seeing that there are more roots that is being generated every single time, those roots also help the plant to take up the nutrients. And if there's more workers, then the output is going to be more. So seeing that there are more roots that is working to grow the plant, the leaves are also going to upsize and the plant is eventually going to grow. So that is a tip that I neglected to share on Wednesday, but here is the tip right now. So yeah, I think this is a real testament of not cutting your plants. But anyways, Anthurium Moronense hybrid. The next one that we are going to be looking at is the Anthurium Queen of Hearts. So this one is a little bit different to the ones that we've looked at before, and I think in my collection this one is also a little bit different because of the unique color that it has. So here is a picture of when I got this plant. So as you can see, a really nice small seedling at the time, and here is what the plant looks like today. So this is the newest leaf, and it has sized up quite significantly. It does have a new leaf on the way as well, so hopefully it is going to grow quite nicely for me. So quite a nice size up from the plant that I showed you just now. In the last year, it has grown quite nicely. It does have some older leaves that are looking like it is going to shed very soon, but that's okay. There is a new leaf on the way. So I think this plant did well until I moved. It kept on sizing up quite nicely. I wouldn't say they were quite significant upsizes, but it consistently upsized. And I think this is also one of the plants that continuously ended up growing well for me. So as soon as the leaf hardens off, probably a week or 2 weeks later, I would see a new leaf on this one. And this is also what I could see on here. So I have moved probably about 5 months ago, so it's been a while. So all of these older leaves is dying off. A really interesting color actually, an orange color when it dies off. But this one is such a beautiful dark color. So I think this one is one of those plants that just like to stay in one space. When it does get moved, it takes quite a bit of time for it to adjust to that new environment or to even look good. So as you can see on this leaf, this older leaf actually is a little bit bigger than this one. It probably doesn't look like it because this one is a little bit further away, so it's a little bit closer to the camera than this one, so that's why it probably looks a little bit bigger. But for sure, from where I'm standing, this one is bigger than that one. So I think that's also what you can expect when you move a plant that tends to not enjoy a new environment, which is a lot of plants. Like I said on Wednesday, Chris made a good point when he gave some advice in the Phyto video, and he mentioned that plants don't go from one tree to another. So that is also something that you should be keeping consistent in your house. So find one spot that your plant really likes, and it is going to thrive in that one spot because it gets so used to that type of environment. So, like I said, definitely a testament to not move your plants very often. So now I think it has found its good space, and hopefully from now on it is going to look even better and upsize even more. So yeah, this one is a little bit of a different type of leaf, quite dark, more of a, I'd say, leathery type of texture, and you can hardly even see the veins. It's only when you come real close, then you'll be able to see that there is actually some red veins going through the leaf. But yeah, really, really interesting plant. I can't wait for this one to size up even more and eventually it flowers. It has been in catapult stage for quite a while. So I think because the plant wasn't happy with the moving to a different environment, to a new spot in the house, in the greenhouse, it's taking some time for it to work on a inflow. I know that Queen of Hearts is said to be a little bit sterile, meaning that there isn't a lot of hybrids that is successful with this plant. But for sure, I will try as soon as there are some inflows and it seems to be a regular occurrence. Then I'm definitely going to try and hybridize this one. There are some Queen of Hearts hybrids out there, but very few and far in between. So that's going to be a cool challenge. I'm hoping that that is going to happen in 2026. But if not, definitely I think in 2027, this plant should be quite stable in its environment. But yeah, Anthurium Queen of Hearts. The very last one that I want to show you is the Anthurium Chamberlainii. So it's kind of in the same WhatsApp group as the previous one, meaning that it is quite brownish, quite dark, quite leathery in texture. So this is what the plant looked like when I initially got it in my plant living house. So it's been in the house for probably about a year, almost a year and a half. And let me show you what the plant looks like right now. And this is what the plant looks like right now. So like I say, quite dark. It's actually more of a dark maroon kind of color. And here you can see on the new leaf, it is so pretty. It's really getting quite big now. Yeah, so I think quite a big size up from the plant that I got initially. So I definitely would say that this one is heading into the right direction. Don't mind this leaf so much. It did get damaged during the winter moves. It was unfurling while it was in transit, so I did get quite damaged. So I generally keep the leaves on. I know that there is two schools of thought. There's one that says cut the leaves off if it doesn't bring you any joy, and there's another school of thought that says no, keep the leaf on until it kind of falls off by itself, because the rest of the plant extracts the nutrients from this leaf. To be quite honest, I don't know if that is the truth because I've also cut off some of the older leaves before and my plants continue to grow bigger and beautifully. And I also kept on the ugly leaves and the plant continued to grow beautifully then too. So I keep it on until one day that I decide it is chopping day, then the ugly leaves would go. But this one is kind of in the corner, and this leaf is pretty much out of sight. So I only see the beautiful leaves. So this one you would see also similar to what you saw on the Queen of Hearts. It does have some of this orange, and this is a watering issue. Like I said on Wednesday, consistent watering is the key. So this one is showing some signs of stress and it might impact the future leaves. But definitely a good size up from the small plant that I showed you that I got initially into this plant loving house. And I think it is because I was really on top of the watering. Before, this one was more towards the front of the shelf, seeing that it was still small. But now that the petioles are getting quite long and the leaves are getting quite big, I ended up putting this one a little bit more to the back and other smaller plants are more in front. So I think that's also why I am potentially not making sure that the reservoir is full. So I do water consistently, but I think I probably haven't lifted this part up to see what the water level is. And maybe when I watered, there was still a little bit too little water in the reservoir. I should have topped it up with a little bit more. But in any case, this is a good testament of what the plant can do if you do give it consistent watering, and then also what it'll probably do if you don't give it consistent watering. It won't be as beautiful as the previous leaves and what it can grow into. But in any case, that is the Anthurium Chamberlainii. And that is it. That is all of the plants that I wanted to show you. So I hope that during this video, you would also have picked up what I discussed on Wednesday and the tips that worked for me. And in this video, you would be able to see the results of basically those tips. But I hope that you really enjoyed this week's video. I am going to see you on Wednesday, where I'm going to show you some other plants that I got from Keith at Exotic Flora. So see you on Wednesday. Have a lekker rest of your day. Bye bye.